Welcome to Inside Interpreting and this very, very special interview video. If you're watching on the main YouTube channel, you will see a 5-minute version of this. If you would like to unlock the entire interview, feel free to sponsor the channel over on Patreon. The link will be down in the video description, as always. With me, I have one of my personal interpreting heroes, Professor Ebru Diriker. Ebru, rather than doing an introduction, I just wanted you to explain your current role and what you do and introduce yourselves to everyone who'll be watching.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Well, currently, I am engaged in many aspects of interpreting, I'd say. I've been a practicing interpreter for over 25 years. I do research on interpreting. I supervise other people's research on interpreting, and I teach interpreting currently at York University and University of Ottawa in Canada, but also in Istanbul at Boğaziçi. My experience as a conference interpreter and all the readings I did not really match with the kind of things I read about interpreting. Things the media said, things sometimes the professional associations, organizations, and even interpreters said. Because the general discourse on interpreting is, well, interpreters are there to understand the meaning that the speaker wants to convey, and they're there to convey this to another language.
Yep.
So basically, it erases, or let me say it this way, you are present in your interpretation, but it's as if you are transparent. Something goes through you to another language. And this did not really match with my own experience. So as I've given a couple of talks for professional associations, I can see how interested practitioners become in research if it's made more accessible, not in articles, in some academic journal. I understand they don't necessarily follow that, but I think we need more platforms to communicate with practitioners, because I know that a lot of them are fascinated, even with very challenging research results.
Yeah. Would you say then that there seems to be a need for conference interpreting to listen to the work in community interpreting?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And Jonathan, let's not forget the boundaries between conference interpreting and community are not that distinct. For instance, Council of Europe, its court, the European Court of Human Rights, or the International Criminal Court, which are courts. You would traditionally think this is part of community interpreting. They're not. They use conference interpreters in the proceedings. So conference interpreters work for courts. So the boundaries there are not clear. I'm a conference interpreter. I've been recruited many times as a conference interpreter, but have worked for interviews between a European institution and victims of domestic abuse. There you go. I was recruited as a conference interpreter, so I would say we should not really delineate the two areas as that separate, because they are certainly not. And the decision-making is there in both of the areas, for sure.
I think because they should be very much the same.
Oh, yes. Very much the same. And I now here in Canada, I do court interpreting. I go to courts and I see how difficult it is. And unfortunately, in many countries, it's very much underpaid, not recognized. So I fully agree with you.
So I just wanted to round this interview off, one, because I know how busy you are. I'm also aware that YouTube has an upload limit, so I don't want to go through the upload limit. So if you could tell experienced interpreters one thing about research in general, or your research, what would it be?
I would say, show an interest in research. Don't shut it out. And I know that you don't when we can make it accessible. And it's excellent to be in communication, because research needs reality, the real life interpreting behavior, to say something, but it can say very interesting things that just interpreting might not reveal.
So Ebru Diriker, thank you very much. And for those of you who subscribe on Patreon, I hope you enjoyed this video. For those who've watched the short version, see you next week.